The bill of indictment of 13 Russians loaded in trying to handle us voters with public print shines a enchanting lighting on a subtle, ruthless transactions to utilize the web for policy profit. There's how U.S. investigators say the Russians did it. It was 2014, and in a house in St. Petersburg, the Russki web study agent, IRA, was already difficult at job how's its stockpile to get on U.S. policy. Onto U.S. prosecutorial, the IRA had collected kidnapped identities of actual Americans, and a menacing encyclopedia of which plant on public print while it comes to riling up Americans speaking on policy. 2 members of the agent were told to include passing to the U.S. to collect more than intellect, a reality-finding round take in Niner State, on 2 investigators. Behind on Russki ground, the IRA began posing on the internet as U.S. voluntary in procedure to collect tips on how to efficaciously goal voters. One actual voluntary, relying in Texas, said the Russians to aim for the Crimson State, such wherever the racing was departure to be more rigid. And so they did, prosecutorial tell. Hillary Clinton doesn't merit the dark voice, recite A, located in May 2016. Trump card is our just expect for a superior next, recite elsewhere by a monthly after. The intention was to build an ambience of department and wrath on the internet. The Kremlin, the bill of indictment says, requested insecurity in America. It requested to influence several human beings' voice, and for other, especially sexual minorities, convince them not to voice at all. Moscow loudly denies interference in the U.S. voice and named the concoction ridiculous. The bill of indictment says how the IRA controllable an Instagram expense named woke blacks. A special buzz and hate for Trump card is deceptive the human beings and coercion blacks to voice Hillary, one communication, located by the expense in October 2017, proclaimed. We cannot refuge to the inferior of 2 devils. Later we'd certainly be superior off out of vote at all. Prosecutorial told Russki operatives would job shifts to do certainly their wiring times match the time zone of the region they were claiming to be relying. But the job was circle the clock. While the operatives, they named themselves specialists, weren't wiring, they were training and receive feedback loop on written styling. They were told to be always tracking the virus successful of their attitude, fine-tuning and set up to maximize retweets and the distribution of the communication. The crew is as well told to include had a listing of U.S. social holidays, and relevant substance prepared to go so they would mixture in. Onto trial documents, the IRA took few measures to conceal its tracks, duping the technique companies who were ignorant, or incapable, to halt which was filter via their system. The key, and evident, go was to conceal the reality how these posts were upcoming of Russia. For how, the IRA is told to include utilized few virtual individual networks, VPNs, to path their operative via computers in the US. The operatives supposedly utilized kidnapped identities to set up PayPal accounts with actual US names. The bill of indictment outlines a campaigning so efficient at achieving US voters, U.S. business community began profitable the Russians to run promoting content. The IRA would accusation the business community, supposedly ignorant who was over the expense, among $25 to $50 per position. It wasn't hard to transmission the on the internet wrath in actual lifetime displays on US gateway of their desks in St. Petersburg, and with counterfeit US personas such as ecstatic voluntary Matt Skipper. The Russki operatives are estimated to include organized actual life protests and demonstrations. In a man dressed as Hillary Clinton in jail dress stood within a goal-built cell on the behind of a tablet lorry, investigators tell. The IRA is told to include pay for advertisements on Facebook housebird election meetings in the Crimson State it had been informed to goal by the voluntary on the land in Texas. One day Mr. Trump card was selected. Investigators told the IRA excited to sow more than dissatisfaction. It spurred 2 contradictory demonstrations in New York, one in supporting of the new CEO-elect and else bearings the communication Trump card is not my CEO. In the trial, the IRA is told to include constructed up a listing of more than rather than 100 actual Americans who it had contacted for assist in organize these actual world efforts, no of them aware they were puppets in a largest daring Russki campaigning. A campaigning how, as far as we aware, is really lot continuing.